Welcome, age of vintage society. Lena Horne will be remembered as a woman who stood strong for more than 70 years in the face of what could have been spirit-crushing discrimination. In doing so, she leaves a legacy of inspiration and empowerment, as well as wonderful music and memories for many Americans. Why Lena Horne had to beg to get her career back. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Lena Horne, Hollywood's velvet voice. Lena Horne was one of the most famous performers in the country, a recording star, a Hollywood actress, and a nightclub sensation. The legendary Lena Horne has a quality of timelessness about her. Elegant and wise, she personifies both the glamour of Hollywood and the reality of a lifetime spent battling racial and social injustice. She was the first African American signed to a long-term studio contract. In her rise beyond Hollywood's racial stereotypes of maids, butlers, and African natives, she achieved true stardom on the silver screen and became a catalyst for change, even beyond the glittery fringes of studio life. Lena Horne was born in Brooklyn, New York on June 30, 1917. Her father, Edwin Teddy Horne, who worked in the gambling trade, left the family when Lena was 3. Her mother, Edna, was an actress with an African-American theatre troupe and travelled extensively. Her childhood was far from perfect. Teddy Horne was a shameless gambler who frequently squandered their money and then abandoned his wife and little daughter. As Horne's mother was in a travelling black theatre troupe, she simply couldn't take care of Lena on her own. Horne was mainly raised by her grandparents, Cora Calhoun and Edwin Horne. Yet she still moved a great deal in her early years because her mother often took her with her on the road. They lived in various parts of the South before Horne was returned to her grandparents' home in 1931. After her grandparents died, she was sent to live with her mother's friend, Laura Rollock. Shortly thereafter, her mother married Miguel Mike Rodriguez, and Horne moved in with them. The constant moving resulted in Lena having an education that was often interrupted. She attended various small-town separated by race, schools, when in the South with her mother. In Brooklyn she attended the Ethical Cultural School, the Girls' High School, and a secretarial school. She dropped out of high school without earning a diploma and moved in with her father in Pittsburgh at the age of 18. Horne had early ambitions to be a performer, against the wishes of her family, who believed that she should aspire to greater heights. During her teenage years, Lena Horne took dance, singing and acting lessons at the Anna Jones Dancing School in Brooklyn. The Hornes were an established middle-class family, with several members holding college degrees and distinguished positions in organizations such as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, and the Urban League, a group that worked to increase the economic and political power of minorities and to end discrimination based on race. Nonetheless, Horne pursued her own course and at age 16 was hired to dance in the chorus at Harlem's famed Cotton Club. From a young age, Lena Horne never felt like she fitted in. As her star rose, she not only was denied roles because she was black, she was also accused of passing as white by her fellow African-American entertainers. It seemed like she could never win, and Horne struggled to find her place while chasing her dreams. The parade also starred Adelaide Hall, who took Horne under her wing. Later she joined the Noble Sissles Orchestra and toured together with them. In 1940 Horne started touring with the band leader Charlie Barnett, but disliked the travelling lifestyle and left to work in New York's Cafe Society. It was here that the svelte, beautiful Horne started practicing and honing her craft. She got in touch with African-American jazz greats like Billy Eckstine and Billy Strayhorn, who were impressed with the girl's talents. Horne and Billy Strayhorn got along famously. Lena Horne even once confessed that if Strayhorn weren't homosexual, she would have married him at the drop of a hat. Even so, the two artistic souls had a long and beautiful friendship. She sang in the chorus, and though only 16 years old, held her own among the older and more experienced cast members. There she was surrounded by up-and-coming jazz legends including Billie Holiday, Teddy Wilson and Duke Ellington. For the next 5 years, Horne performed in several nightclubs on Broadway. Barnett's band was white, thus allowing Horne to become one of the first African-American star performers who developed an appeal across American racial boundaries. In 1938, Horne moved to Hollywood, California, where she was cast in several movies. Years later, Horne recalled, "In every other film I just sang a song or two. The scenes could be cut out when they were sent to local distributors in the South. Unfortunately, I didn't get much of a chance to act." Horne's fame catapulted in 1942 when she became the first African-American actor to sign a long-term contract with a major filmmaker, MGM Studios. In the following year, Horne had leading roles in 2 all-black MGM films, Cabin in the Sky and Stormy Weather. The title song from the latter movie became one of her most successful recordings. The 2 movie roles, however, established her stardom on the silver screen. By the mid-1940s, Lena Horne was the highest-paid African-American actor in the United States. In addition to her MGM salary of $1,000 a week, she earned $1,500 for every radio appearance and commanded $6,500 per week when she performed in nightclubs. With her lofty ambitions leaning toward Hollywood, it wasn't long before Horne moved to Los Angeles to focus her energy on filmmaking. While there, however, she still did nightclub work on the Sunset Strip and continued to grow her name and her brand in different ways. There was just no stopping Ms. Lena Horne. For a time it seemed like Lena Horne was going to break every Hollywood barrier that existed. She started with small roles in musicals, but moved on to bigger ones as the studio grew more satisfied with her performances. Tragically, Lena Horne never reached her full potential. At the time, racist attitudes meant that in many American cities some theatres would refuse point blank to show black actors on the screen. Because of this, Horne never got to play the lead role in these films, and perhaps even worse, her appearances were mostly limited to standalone musical numbers that could easily be edited out. As she once lamented, "No one bothered to put me in a movie where I talked to anybody. I began to feel depressed about it, wasted emotionally." Despite her difficulties, Horne never gave up fighting for stardom. In 1946 she even appeared in the ensemble blockbuster Ziegfeld Follies. She was in good company. The film was a star-studded event featuring the likes of Fred Astaire and Judy Garland. The sultry Horne appeared singing the pop standard Love. Arguably, Horne's biggest letdown was her failure to win the part of Julie Laverne in the 1951 hit film Showboat. In the story, the Laverne is eventually revealed to be mixed race, just like Horne herself. While it was a perfect fit, studios were still afraid to put Horne front and centre, so they cruelly rejected her. Then the tragedy got even worse. After rejecting Horne, MGM decided to cast the popular, beautiful and very white actress Ava Gardner in the role instead. To add insult to injury, Gardner reportedly practiced the musical numbers in the film to recordings of Horne's previous performances of the songs in another film. Talk about a stab in the back. Horne also developed a reputation as a political activist. During World War II, she often entertained black soldiers in segregated units at her own expense. She also refused to perform before segregated audiences during and after World War II. Horne also worked with First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt to lobby the US Congress to enact anti-lynching legislation. Horne's career stalled in the early 1950s when she was identified as a communist sympathizer. She was blacklisted by Hollywood studios, but was allowed to perform on the rising new medium, television. Despite nearly a decade of ostracism because of her personal and political beliefs, Horne continued to perform in nightclubs and by the late 1950s became a major recording star. Her album, Lena Horne at the Waldorf Astoria, recorded in 1957, was considered by music critics to be the best of her career. In the 1960s, Horne's career revived partly because of the growing civil rights movement. Horne identified with that movement, and in 1963 she was one of the most prominent entertainers at the March on Washington. Horne also performed for other civil rights rallies across the nation. Throughout her life, Horne was romantically linked to many famous men. She is reported to have dated musician Artie Shaw, director Orson Welles, and boxer Joe Louis, but Horne was unlucky in love. At the height of her stardom, when she was barely out of her 20s, Horne married the handsome Louis Jordan Jones in 1937. For a brief time it seemed like a fairy tale ending. The couple had 2 children, daughter Gail and son Edwin. Sadly, it was actually doomed to an utterly heartbreaking end. The pressures of stardom became too much for the young lovers, and they separated just 4 years after the wedding. In the 1940s it seemed like Horne was willing to give love another shot, and she married prestigious MGM music director Lenny Hayton in 1947 during a lavish ceremony in Paris, France. Their relationship was racked with scandal. Hayton was a white man, and interracial marriages were still frowned upon, but they were hiding an even darker secret. Horne once revealed that her marriage to Hayton was mostly loveless, and that she had only married him to help improve her career prospects and to cross the Hollywood colour line. In 1941, Horne made a noteworthy appearance at the Cafe Society in New York's Greenwich Village. The Cafe Society was a progressive venue that played to mixed audiences, and it was at the venue that the young Horne met fellow performer and activist Paul Robeson. Their encounter would change Lena Horne's life forever. Robeson encouraged Horne to become active in her community and join organisations like the Council for African Affairs. Though it opened her up to a world of charity and activism she had never seen before, these affiliations would later come back to haunt her in the darkest of ways. At the time, these organisations were seen as communist sympathisers, and with the Cold War, Hollywood was in the infamous midst of the Red Scare. Suddenly, Horne was blacklisted for years within the entertainment industry. She was totally blindsided by the accusations and struggled to get work even with old contacts. As one commentator put it, Lena was screwed. Nobody could or would defend her. If she wanted to survive, she had to do something drastic. In order to save herself, Horne begged and pleaded with authorities for years and proclaimed her innocence and ignorance to anyone who would listen. None of it helped. She sat down at the desk of the hotel where she was staying, picked up its official stationery, and wrote a heartbreaking letter. Addressing it to a prominent Hollywood anti-communist, Roy Brewer, she scrawled, "I have always known that America offers the greatest chance to all people to achieve human dignity, and since this terrible experience I am more determined than ever to do what I can to impress these principles on the thinking of all people I come into contact with." She also admitted that she had trusted the wrong people, but that her heart was pure inside. Miraculously it worked, particularly in combination with her other efforts. Before long she was acting again, and we have the privilege of remembering her today. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Lena Horne? Lena Horne became a star of film, music, television and stage, as well as a formidable force for civil rights.